Hello everyone. Do you know what? I've never actually had to remove a set of diesel glow plugs on a Mk5 Mondeo 2 litre diesel. And I have been meaning to do it for a long time just for a video. And the other day somebody left a comment asking how do you remove, or I would like to know how you remove the glow plugs. So I thought, well, guess what? I have an engine there that has recently taken a dump. So I thought, while it's all still built up and intact, pretty much so, let's do it. Before I actually start removing these glow plugs, someone's bound to ask, hey Alan, why is this engine taking a shit? Well, I shall tell you. But by the way, this is a T7 CP engine. And most of the engines we have in the taxis from like 65 plate to 18 plate are T7 CF. And there's a lot of variations in these numbers. And I kind of wonder to myself, what is all the difference between all these numbers? Does somebody out there actually know? Because they all look the same, if you know what I mean. You look at these engines, they all look the same. Is it a lot of it to do with the software in the ECUs? Anyway, this particular engine had done around about 268,000 miles. And what happened was the bearings in the turbo decided to break or get excessive play in them. And the oil, it didn't go down the exhaust side. It did not come out the exhaust side and down through the DPF. It came out the inlet side, and the oil come around here, all the way around, and it went round into your intake through the turbo intercooler, I guess. And it literally ran on its own oil. And the engine, it revved up like uncontrollably, clouds and clouds of smoke. This is the account the driver told me. When the engine was revving at 40, it was like a full, couldn't rev any higher. He switched the ignition off. It didn't stop running, obviously, because it was running on its own engine oil. And he then rammed it into 5th gear and stalled it eventually. But he said there was absolutely clouds of smoke everywhere. And after that, it's like lost compression on at least one of the cylinders. So I'm kind of assuming it's got a bent conrod. So it still actually runs, but not very well, and it smokes a lot. So I'm wondering whether this engine is actually worth trying to repair it or not. We may well take this one apart, and if it's just a case of a bent conrod, we might be able to repair it. Anyway, let's get on with replacing these glow plugs. So I guess the first thing, if you suspect your glow plugs may be faulty, if your engine is starting badly first thing in the morning, maybe it's coughing and spluttering and you're getting a bit of smoke coming out of it on startup, you want to check this plug connector here. You've got 4 thick wires, and each of these wires go to one of your glow plugs. So you can pull this connector apart, put a test light onto here, test probe, and you can actually check the voltage here. Or you can use a multimeter if you like, and you should have around about 10 volt at least. Normally battery voltage 12 volt, but anyway, at least if you've got power going to it. If you haven't got power going to this plug connector when you turn the ignition on first thing in the morning, you probably want to look further back towards your relay, your glow plug relay, and maybe the fuse. There could be another problem. But if you have got power going to this, then the next step, we want to check the resistance of the actual glow plugs on this side of the plug connector. So all you really need is a multimeter. And I'm going to take my positive lead of this multimeter and put it onto the first terminal. And I would touch the earth lead of the multimeter onto an earth point on the engine. And we have 0.2 of an ohm. So basically, we have got a circuit running through our first glow plug. If I remove the earth lead, and with the number 1 on this multimeter stands for open circuit. If we had open circuit, we know our glow plug is dead. But when I connect my leads up, we know we've got a resistance running through our actual glow plugs. So I know the glow plug is probably working, but we're going to remove them anyway. And you would do that for each glow plug. And if you had, say, 1 or 2 dead ones, you can then just replace them 1 or 2, or you could replace the whole lot, whatever you want to do. Anyway, let's get this show on the road. On top of your fuel filter housing, there'll be like 3 8mm bolts, which I've already removed, and you can take this plate off. You'll have to disconnect your fuel pipes from the fuel filter housing. There's little tabs there that you kind of flick up like that, and then you put your bar in there and push the other tab down, then you can pull the pipe out. This one's already snapped off. Push that in. There. Just be careful when you're pulling this pipe off. Like I said, it's easy to snap this actual connection off here. Disconnect the plug connector on your fuel filter housing. And in fact, there's also a big grey connector and another connector which sits by the side of the fuel filter housing, which doesn't really go into anything. If I can flick the tab up. There. And unclip the wiring from the outside housing. The two connectors which go onto your fuel rail pressure sensor and your map sensor, you want to disconnect that wiring as well, because we are going to remove the throttle housing. 7mm socket size on your turbo intercooler pipe. And we can pull that pipe off and just tuck it up around under the radiator somewhere. Where the wires like clip in to your throttle housing, just disconnect them with a trim tool. And you can get all that wiring, just lay it out to one side somewhere. There's a little pipe that goes from your EGR valve to the throttle housing. It's where the exhaust gases flow through. There's like 2 bolts up here, 8mm, and there's another 2 down there. You want to remove all 4 of them bolts, and then you can pull that pipe and remove it. There's another plug connector underneath your throttle housing, which actually is connected to your throttle housing, that you want to disconnect. Sometimes it's actually easier to disconnect that plug connector once you've actually unbolted the throttle housing. There's 3 little 8mm bolts holding this throttle housing to the head. If you've got a little wobbly bar, it makes life a whole lot easier. So last but not least, and this one down the left hand side is the one you really do need a wobbly bar with. It's a bit of a pain. Anyway, come on, that's it, we're off. There's a solenoid that's bolted to the side of the fuel filter housing. Now we've got the throttle housing out of the way, it's easy to get to these 2 10mm bolts. So we'll get them removed. One of them, if you take the top one off, you can literally just pull it off the bottom one actually, rather than undoing the bolt. So on our fuel filter housing, there'll be a 10mm bolt here on the left hand side, and in this hole here, there'll be another 10mm bolt. And on the right hand side, you'll have a 10mm nut up here, and another 10mm nut right underneath. So if you get all them nuts and bolts removed, you can then slide the fuel filter housing off its studs. And they've managed to put the dipstick tube right in the way of one of the glow plugs. So I shall undo the bolt holding the tube onto the head. At least that way we can wriggle the dipstick tube out of the way a little bit. So this first plug connector on our first glow plug is by the timing belt side of the engine. This is cylinder number 4, believe it or not. Because these engines are French, they do it arse about face. Cylinder number 1 is by the flywheel side of the engine, and cylinder number 4 is by the timing belt side of the engine, which goes completely against sort of like convention, but hey, like I said, it's the French, so what can I say? Anyway, I shall pull this connector off. We'll get a set of mould grips on there and give that a tug, that's it. Now these glow plugs are an 8mm socket size, so you want a deep 8mm socket. And this is always the dodgy bit, because you want them to undo. You don't want that to be tight to the point where it could actually snap in the cylinder head. Then you're going to have hell and all problems. So be careful when you're undoing them. Don't try and force it. Oh, I'll tell you, that undone okay. That was all right. Really, believe me, you do not want to snap a glow plug in the head. you'll be in a whole world of shit. Anyway, that's coming out nicely. That's completely undone now. So I'll pull that out. There. I will say, whenever you remove a glow plug, if the tip of it is nice and grey, like this one, you can be pretty much assured that that glow plug is working. If that was all black and sooted up, then there's a good chance it's dead. So all it is now is a case of removing the rest of your plug terminals. You can, if you've got a nice pair of pliers or mole grips, a small pair of mole grips, you can actually pull the plug connectors off quite easily. And all the other 3 glow plugs are all accessible now. So see that one there? We can actually get to them all now without any more disassembly of anything. And that one actually come out like a little lovely. There. Bingo. And this is the one right on the end by the flywheel side, which is actually cylinder number 1. Yep, that's coming out as well. No problem. Now for the tricky one with the dipstick tube in the way. There's always one, but if we pull the tube to one side, we can still get down there. Yep. That's okay. Here we go. Got it. And there we go. 4 glow plugs. Should we connect them up to a battery? Right then. So we'll connect our earth lead to the main body of the glow plug. And now we're going to connect our live lead up to the tip of the glow plug, the part the connector goes onto. And you watch how fast this glow plug heats up. Look at that. It's like a little glowworm. Woo! See in the dark. Yeah, I've disconnected it now, so, but yeah. But all our glow plugs are working perfectly fine. So I don't need to replace them anyway, but the engine's dud anyway, so what does it bloody matter? I just wanted to show how to remove them. But I think what I'm going to do now, I'm going to find the torque wrench setting for putting them back in, because some people are probably going to ask that. I'm on auto data here, Ford Mondeo 2 litre TDCi, and if I come down here to glow plugs and come along, it is 6 Newton meters.